I hear it over and over again from my clients. We're just so busy. We don't really have time to connect. And when we do have time, all we do is talk about the projects. Well, the reality is life isn't going to get easier or simpler. So what can we do about it? How can we still connect with our partner even though our calendars are full, our brains are in overdrive, and emotionally we feel just completely tapped out? Well, I've brought Dr. Margaret Cochran onto the podcast to teach us how to stay connected when life gets messy. Let me share with you a little bit about her. Dr. Cochran is a transpersonal psychologist, licensed clinical social worker, life coach, hypnotherapist, educator. I'm going to keep on going. Social media personality and author with more than 25 years of clinical experience. She seamlessly interweaves traditional ego psychology, transpersonal psychology, and energy psychology, affording her patients every tool possible to achieve their goals and make their dreams a reality. Dr. Cochran has been featured in a range of media outlets throughout the country, including BBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, CBS Radio, Healthline, Total Beauty, Media News Group, Mercury News. I could keep going. In addition to the Huffington Post, she's also been featured regularly on NBC Sacramento's morning show and hosted radio programs such as Wisdom, Love, and Magic, and A Mental Health Moment. Okay, everybody, go grab a warm drink and a pen and paper because you're going to want to jot down the notes that Dr. Cochran gives us on how we can start better connecting, even though life is not going to shift and change and magically get easier. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to Relationship Reset, a podcast for high-achieving couples who've been together for over a decade and don't want to feel like roommates anymore. I'm Katie Russler, relationship strategist and couples counselor with almost 20 years of experience helping ambitious couples reconnect, strengthen communication, and turn their relationship into the best part of their success story. This podcast is about using practical tools and a lot of real talk to help you understand your patterns, stop feeling stuck and discouraged, and start working on your relationship in ways that actually fit your busy life. Because your relationship shouldn't be the cost of your success, it should be the best part of it. So let's dive in. Do you find that the longer with your partner, there's a struggle in being connected? I talk with couples often that say, we just don't really know what to do together anymore, or life is just getting so messy and so frustrating that finding time to spend with each other seems like the last thing on the list. I have brought Dr. Margaret Cochran to talk with us about how to stay connected when life gets messy. So Dr. Cochran, thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Share with us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and the type of people you like to work with.
I work with a wide variety of people. My training is kind of varied. I started out in special education, then I went to social work, then I did traditional ego psychology training, and then finally transpersonal psychology. So I'm kind of all over the map as far as that goes. But I do a lot of work with couples, and I talk to couples a lot about how a relationship is made and how it comes apart.
Beautiful. I think that's where we should start. When looking at long-term couples, so those who've been together 10 plus years, what would you start them off with in explaining how the relationship starts to come apart?
Well, the first thing I start out with is the developmental timeline for intimate relationships. And it's pretty specific, actually. When you marry or make a life commitment to a partner, you make a contract about who's going to be who's going to do what the power distribution is, et cetera, et cetera. And your first contract length is about 3 years long, which is why so many couples get divorced around year 2, year 4. Right in that constellation, they don't make that first contract. I refer to that first contract as your first child. It's your baby. So let's assume we get past year 3. Yay, we did that. Now, the next time we re-up is year 7. And people have probably heard of the 7-year itch, right? That's very well known. Sometime around year 7, if you're going to have kids, probably you're ready to do that or you have done that. And so you get all wrapped up in a secondary contract of being parents. Now, here's the nasty part. You can get so focused on those biological children that you make that you forgot to take care of your first baby. And you know what happens when you don't care of babies? They die. They get sick and they die. And that's not good. So by year 14, which is the next time we re-up the contract, you're divorced. And then year 21 and 28, in intervals of 7, okay? But that first baby needs nurturing. And babies, they grow up. Right, don't they? So their needs change, their developmental focus changes. And so there has to be an ongoing, regular, specific dialogue with the couple to talk about how's the baby? How are we doing? I have a little algorithm for that. It's called passion, play, and productivity, the 3 Ps. And if you think about it, the passion, play, and productivity are legs of a stool. And then the seat of the stool sits on top of the legs. And then life impinges on the seat of the stool. Work and sick parents and maybe kids and all that stuff pushes down on that stool. Now, if you got 3 strong legs, you're good to go. You're going to be fine. If you're missing a leg or it's wobbly legs, the stool's probably going to go down. So using that little algorithm there gives you a way for the couple to talk to each other. So how's our passion? How's our play? How's our productivity? Are we caring for that baby? Are we doing that? Because if you don't care for the baby is going to die, period.
I really appreciate this framework of passion, play, and productivity. And I was just thinking, the first thing I see happen with couples long term is the play goes away.
Yep.
Not the passion, because the passion usually comes out in the arguing or in the,
Yes.
I can't stand this about you. You always do that, whatever, right? But play, the creativity, the fun, the, being spontaneous, that goes first.
Well, often we minimize that. We pretend that it's not important. And it's so funny what you said just a moment ago. It reminded me, I was in Ireland. I was giving this lecture about couples intimacy. So I said, often the things that we fall in love with someone for are the things that we hate their guts for later.
Yep.
So they're kind of looking at me funny, And I said, you know how it is? You're laying in bed and you look over at your partner and you say, oh, I remember why I fell in love with you. And you're just so happy and you just want to kiss him and cuddle him. Then a few days later, you think, I could just take this pillow and very quietly put it over your face. And that would be the end of that. So that it's like an ocean, The feeling comes in and goes out again. So being aware that you have to take care of not only your adult self, but your kid self, because there's a lot of people in an intimate relationship, a lot of people that often we unconsciously react to, but don't consciously think about. And the 2 most important players in this scenario are kid selves and our adult selves. And when we fall in love and make a commitment, those 4 need to get along.
Right.
They need to have a way to communicate and support each other and be empathic to one another. Empathic, I'm going to say that probably 1,000 times while we're talking. It's so, so important not to lose your empathy. Because if you lose your empathy, you start thinking, well, that person, my partner is just being mean to me, or they have, negative aspirations or an agenda or whatever. And that's not fun. There's no play going on there. If that play leg goes away and you don't take care, that's part of the baby, right? If you don't take care of that leg and you lose that leg, your stool is now balancing on 2 legs. Now, here's what's interesting about that. People will often look in the news and some famous couple is consciously uncoupled, as they like to say, or some like to say, and people are shocked. Oh, I thought they were so happy. Well, if you paid attention, you could see they had 1 strong leg and everyone assumes the other legs are there. And so often when a friend of ours, or even sometimes ourselves, we look at our relationships, I thought everything was fine. No, actually they had 1.5 legs and you were pretending the others were there. And of course the stool went down.
And that strong leg is usually productivity, isn't it? It's
Yep,
they look functional. They look like they got it all together because they are on time. They brought the casserole. They're dressed nicely, right? And in the car it was hell until they got there.
Well, and another one is often the passion leg. The couple will seem cuddly or they touch each other a lot and everything's, oh, they must be so in love. Well, actually, they're very erotic people.
Yeah.
And they just like that. But you can't hold a whole stool up with 1 erotic leg. The best predictors of marital success? Wedding band players.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They've been to a zillion weddings, and they can take a look. And the ones I've worked with, I give them the 3 Ps. So now they have something to talk about. And they can say, yeah, I give them 6 months or maybe a year because they can see what's missing. They can see in their interactions with other people and with each other. Oh, yeah, that person is not empathic. That person is not kind. That person isn't being playful. This is like a joyful day. And they're being all cranky pants about the hors d'oeuvres or something that doesn't really matter. So go wedding band, folks. Yeah.
That's so true. See, you don't need to go to a relationship therapist. Go hang out with the funny band. Go, what do you think? Do you think we'll make it?
Go in the back with the band and you're good to go.
One of the things that also came to mind as you were talking about how play tends to go and what that looks like is as soon as play goes, the villain versus the victim kind of mindset comes out. You're the villain, I'm the victim. Because with play, it's vulnerability, it's letting go of those guards, there's no identifying anything, it's fun. And as soon as we remove that play, we start to put roles into place that fulfill other needs that we have.
Beautifully said. I was working with a couple one time, and he had this habit of just inviting people over. He's a little bit too spontaneous, and he'd say, oh, just come over for dinner, right? His wife would come and say, oh my God, 6 people are here. What's going on? So part of their agreement in therapy was he would not invite people over without checking with her first. Okay, so that was the agreement.
Yeah.
Well, she came home one evening. She said, so how was your day? He said, fine. And so she said, is something wrong? You seem a little off. He said, well, I sort of invited the Smiths over for dinner. And she said, I can't believe you did that. You promised me. Oh, God. Now we got to figure out something to feed them. So she's going through the cupboards in the refrigerator and doing this and that. She pulls some potatoes out of the fridge and she throws in the potatoes and she says, do something with these potatoes. And he starts to juggle them. And as he's juggling the potatoes, he said, I'm really sorry. I broke our agreement. I will call the Smiths and tell them that I screwed up. And she's laughing, of course. And she says to him, no, honey, it's all right. We'll just order pizza. If they're okay with pizza, that's what we'll do tonight. Because I don't want you to have to go back on your word. Just please don't do that again. So humor is a huge part of healing. And those of us who laugh at ourselves are endlessly amused, are we not? Because we're always doing goofy stuff and, So being able to laugh at what's going on and that was actually a relationship repair bid that he did for her. He said, in his humorous way, please forgive me. I accept responsibility. Let's see if we can move on from this. And with humor, they could.
And she was able to meet him halfway and go, pizza, love it. Let's do this. Yes. Well, when we look at when life gets messy, you've talked about it, aging parents, the kids, career changes, health issues, all of the things, right? How can we start to move towards each other rather than apart? Especially, and I'm going to point out because a lot of listeners are like the high achiever, hyper independent type, right? I can do it all. I don't need help. But how do we start coming towards each other more? What are the tools you have for us?
Well, rule 1 is you can have it all, but you can't do it all. The first and most important thing is to remember to ask for help. Whether it's help with kids or help around the house or whatever it is, you need to be able to comfortably and confidently ask for help. 2, remember that baby. We don't have time for anything. We don't have time for anything. We have to make time for those things that are most important. And if you want to be in the nursing home with your partner, happy as clams, then you always have to make that relationship first. And everything falls from that. Because once you know that person loves you and has your back and you love them and you have their back, whatever comes, it's just stuff. We'll figure it out. If we have to get both our parents to doctor's appointments at the same time, maybe what we do is get Ubers for them and we meet them there. Maybe we do a video call with the doctor when the person's there and their caretaker. There are all kinds of options you can come up with. If you're comfortable with each other and trust each other and you're strong in your relationship, then you won't get all frazzled and stressed and think, oh my God, I have to do everything. You can't. So don't try.
I love that point that we can have it all, but it's not because we're doing it all.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And in our relationship, my husband always loves to say, if you don't make time for important, important won't happen. Very German.
Wise man.
Very German. We must structure, prioritize values. So one of the things that I have noticed is when I'm working with couples, they will talk about all the things, like you said, they don't have time. I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. And I go, well, you obviously have time because you have the time to do those things.
Yes.
So often we're putting them in the way of making time for what's important. How do we start to look in the mirror and face that?
Thing is, beware of consensual reality. I'm going to repeat that. Beware of consensual reality. Because there are a whole lot of beliefs out there that other people have about what you should be doing. You should do this, or you should do that, or you should prioritize this, or you can't have that. You can't go there. blah, 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 blah. Yeah, don't worry about it. You sit down with your beloved and you figure out what your priorities are and how you're going to achieve them, and everybody else can go suck rocks because it's not their life. It's like when someone, I remember my mother telling me years ago, I was dating this guy and she said, "Oh, you should marry him. He's so wonderful. He's this, da, da, da." And I said, "Yeah, well, no, he looks good on paper, but he's just not the guy for me." And so she said, "Oh, what's wrong with you? You just don't." And I said, "Mom, you know what? If you like him so much, you marry him, but he's not for me." So be careful of consensual reality and what other people tell you your life is supposed to look like.
That's a great point because many of those listening come from different cultures, right? They're bicultural. And so there's a lot of shoulds in our culture and family differences. And how to start having those conversations. Many bicultural couples don't think about. We need to start talking about aging parents and what are the expectations. If there are fertility issues, what are the expectations, right? And also retirement. I often talk with couples here in Munich about, have you guys talked about retirement? I get that it's a few years away, but retirement looks different in different cultures.
Yes.
So having these discussions so that it isn't about the shoulds and we're supposed to of my culture, of my family, versus the two of us formed a contract, our first baby, right?
Yes.
And that's what's important. One of the things I'd love to hear you speak on is, how do you help couples navigate those types of hard conversations?
First of all, when you decide you want to make a life commitment to someone, that's the first time you have those conversations. Okay, money, time, sex, aging parents. Do we want to have kids? Do we not? What does that look like? What does parenting look like to you? Because as I alluded to earlier in our conversation, when you make a life commitment to someone, there are a whole lot of people in that bed with you. I mean, a lot. People you've never met that died, 100 years ago. But those opinions and beliefs have formed a consensual reality about what marriage is, quote, supposed to, I hate that word, supposed to look like. So it's very important that you begin your relationship when you're making your first baby. What do we want our marriage to be? And when this happens or that happens, what do we want our reaction to be? Now, of course, time changes things, but that's the original agreement. So when these issues come up, when these psychosocial stressors show up in our lives, we go back and we look at that first contract. Okay, what did we say we wanted to do? Here's an example. I bet you run into this a lot. There are many Asian parents who expect their children to have them come live in their homes when they're older. And so the parents say is living in America, and they'll say, well, if you come here, you won't have health insurance. If you come here, and you need a surgery, it's so, our health system is so broken. I might lose my house. If you get cancer, we need to find a way for you to stay where you are. And maybe I can, pay to have people help and come visit certain times of the year and do those kinds of things. And the Asian parent is furious and deeply hurt. No, that's not how we do things. I took care of my mother and she took care of hers, and generations upon generation. So being able to have those conversations in a loving way, first with your partner, so you have each other's back, and then with those folks who are perhaps in the traditional culture of origin, whatever that might be, to say, I respect and I appreciate that you want me to show you love in this way. But given the circumstances, I might actually be doing you harm. And we have to find a hybrid, a way to bridge this so that I can still care for you, but you have the services at hand that you need to be healthy and well.
What you just gave us is a script that touches on that empathy that you brought up.
Yeah.
I'm going to empathize with what you need and want and why you need and want it, but I might cause you more harm by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful way. But I hope those that are listening go rewind, write that down, because it really does honor the adult parent, in the situation that you're trying to go, I get it, but we just can't do this. This is not reasonable.
Another cool factor about that, though, is I also teach people when their parents go back to their traditional culture, whatever it might be, and they get criticism from neighbors and friends. Well, why isn't your child doing this? What they say is, my child is so smart and so caring.
Yes.
That she wanted me to have blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't get it where they are. So they are paying for me to get it here. And they're going to visit and supervise and make sure that I'm getting the best services and care possible. What's your kid doing for you?
Right?
So you get that ability to kind of come back at consensual reality, say, yes, I'm proud of my child. And I know they love me, but they may love me a little bit differently than you're expecting them to.
Right, right. And that is okay. Giving permission and freedom to couples to create their own reality, but also to then act in that reality the way they see fit.
Yes.
Important, but it's the couple coming together and having
Yes.
that discussion. Now, for the couples who didn't understand that first contract,
Mm-hmm.
or they wrote a contract that 10, 15, 20 years later, they're like, I don't actually like that. Maybe one of them is like, I was a little too saying yes to everything back then, and now
Mm-hmm.
I want to say no. How do you navigate conversations with couples around the altering of a contract, writing of a new contract, a desire to stay together, but not the way that it looked?
An excellent question. Because the contract is redone every 7 years, usually around year 5 or 6, there are rumblings, maybe more arguments or more uncertainty. And that's when you sit down and have the talk again. Okay, here we are. We're in year 6 or 7. What do we think about the baby? What do you think the baby needs right now to be healthy and strong? Because it's okay. It's okay to renegotiate how you love each other. It's not only okay, it's necessary because our developmental needs change as we grow and age. And we need to be able to have safe language around those changes. We're getting older now. We need to think about, how are we going to set things up so our kids are not worried or stressed if we get sick or when we die? How do we make that easy for them? Versus often what people get stuck. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about planning, any of that kind of stuff. And their kids get hurt, in the long run. So having, wherever you are in life, being able to sit down at those negotiation times and say, okay, where are we? What do we want? And how do we want to plan it so that we both understand what's happening going forward and we can communicate it in positive ways to others who might question us? And you'd be surprised. Well, you wouldn't, but some people would be surprised that people have the audacity to question all kinds of things.
Yes.
That are none of their business. I'm just astounded. A woman in pregnancy, for example, people often feel they can just come up and touch her tummy. That's technically assault. You don't just go touch strangers without their consent or permission. And frequently following that comes from women, sadly, their horror story of labor. I was in labor for 3 days and I bled and da. And this poor woman, who's first of all been physically violated by being touched, is also being terrified. Oh my God, is that going to happen to me? Is that what I see? So we have to be clear about our boundaries and have ways to demonstrate and state unequivocally what they are with empathy and love, of course, but this far and no further. You can't go past this point.
Yeah. And it's protecting our long-term relationship or our marriage the same way. Our friends will share their thoughts and feelings about our partner or, oh, yeah, girl, I can't believe blah, blah, blah. And it will almost make things worse. And sometimes we need a venting buddy, but we also need a boundary to how much we bring in other people's, well, they should, he should, she should. That doesn't always help.
That is such a good point because what happens, and I'm sure you've seen this as well sometimes in couples, is that you'll vent to your friend and then you won't talk to your partner.
Yeah.
All that air that was in the balloon got let out with your friend, but then you don't actually go back and solve the problem.
Right.
So what happens? The balloon fills up again. And that way you stay stuck in whatever problem you have because you don't actually sit down, And there are certain ways that are better or worse for talking about things. For example, couples always get very frustrated with me when I say this. Don't argue when you're mad. Don't do it. It's a terrible thing to do. People always say, well, that's ridiculous. That's what I want to argue. I know that's when you want to argue, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Right.
Go away, self-regulate, have a glass of juice, do what you need to do, and then come back and say to your partner, whom, remember, you love and who loves you, I'm frustrated about something. I need to talk to you. Can you listen now?
Mm.
If the person says no, don't do it. Make a date to do it later. If the person says yes, then you need to cue them. Okay, I need to let you know what's bothering you, but I want you to understand that I love you. And I don't mean this as an attack, but if I don't let you know what's hurting or frustrating me, we can't fix it. And then immediately relieves this tension and stress for the partner. Oh, you're not attacking me. You're not trying to hurt me. You just want to tell me something.
Definitely. That is one skill that I wish all couples could learn.
Oh, yeah.
How the precursor to the talk. Like, how can you really explain to your partner what it is you need, what the point of what you're about to share is? Because often we just word vomit.
Word it out. Yeah.
And it's like, what am I supposed to do with that? Right. So being able to coach our partner on this is what I need. This is what I'm hoping to get from this. And this is why I'm doing this
Mm-hmm.
takes a big weight off your partner's shoulders to know how to support you or listen or respond
Oh,
in
yeah.
better ways.
Absolutely. And as you know, men and women sometimes communicate a little differently. Now, I'm painting with broad strokes here, so there are exceptions, but men tend to kind of come out with their bottom line, and women tend to come out with their process. So if a woman goes to her husband and says, I want to talk to you about something, he says, all right, what is it? And so she's just talking her process. And he said, where's she going? What's happening here? I don't know. When are we going to be done? I don't get it. Okay. If she starts out the discussion or he learns to ask this question, which is usually what I have men do, is I have them say, okay, so is this where you want me to just shut up and listen? Or is this where you want me to listen and then give you my feedback? Because as men, of course, they love the women in their lives and they want to protect them and take care of them. And sometimes they'll give them solutions that women don't need or want, which makes for another argument. So now we have two things to fight about. So if he learns to ask that question or she learns to cue him, and this comes back to something I touched on earlier called safe language, which is you have words and phrases you're allowed to use in your relationship, no harm, no foul. So the other person has agreed to in a calm time that they're not going to get upset about it. So she can say, okay, I need to talk to you about this, but I just need you to shut up and listen. I don't need you to help me with anything. Okay. So he can just sit back and drink his coffee and listen. That's all he has to do.
Absolutely. They might glaze over. It's okay. It was just listen. Well, giving the listeners a little bit of homework, I want to go back to your 3 Ps because I have a feeling there's some listening going, well, we don't check in. We haven't really done a good job of this. And they're feeling like they're late to the party. You're not late to the party. You can start doing this week. Yeah. If they want to sit down and go, okay, let's look at the 3 Ps. How would you have them evaluate those 3 and seeing how strong that leg is or isn't in their relationship?
So let's start with passion. Passion is about sex, but it's also about affection. It's also about that feeling that you just want to be with your partner. You like being in their space and in their energy. And they're the first person that you want to tell when something is great, the first person you tell when something isn't great, the first person that you want to talk through a problem with. Those are all signs of passion. And if some of them, or hopefully not, all of them are missing, you need to work on regenerating that. And the physical part of the relationship is very important because when we touch and cuddle and fondle and make love, we are producing a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin is the feel-good bonding hormone. It's like glue, emotional glue. So it's an important thing to have. Now, play. Play takes many forms. Play is not just vacations, although that's how most couples think of it. We take a vacation 3 times a year or something like that, and we're playing. No, you got to play every day. Little inside jokes, juggling potatoes, whatever, whatever fun little ways you can find to do things. For example, it was one of those days, when everything just kind of goes wrong, just all these little things. And I was standing in the hallway, looking a bit dejected, thinking, oh God, I got all this time I'm going to do it. And my husband just came up and took me in his arms and started to dance with me. And he said, do you come here often? I said, well, yes, I do come here a lot. He said, oh, yeah, there's a lot wrong with this place right now, huh? And I said, yes, there is. He said, well, it's all right. There's always something. We'll figure it out together. So that's a way of playing through, those difficulties. And then productivity. And that's the one that most folks get stuck on, which is the business of the marriage, paying the bills, cleaning up. What you have to be careful with productivity is not to have one partner carry the emotional load for the relationship. And very frequently, it's the woman who carries that. So it's things like the husband, and in a kind way, he'll say, well, I'll help. Tell me what to do. Well, now I have to direct you and I have to do what I need to do. And so that's why having discussions about productivity, as in who will do what, and if someone is assigned to do a particular task or take on a responsibility, then you accept the way they do it. And also know that when it comes to productivity, you can renegotiate anytime. Let's say one half of the couple was in charge of money And then after a few years, the other person said, I kind of like to learn about that and take that over. So they do that. And then that other person takes on some of the jobs that they did. But being aware of that emotional load, being sure it's distributed appropriately. And one last thing about that, if you do decide to have kids, children are not a mother's job. It is not that the mom takes care of the kids and the dad babysits. It doesn't work that way. Not if you want to have a healthy relationship, not if you want to have a healthy marital baby. And you have to also think about your passion, play, and productivity and what you're teaching your children about mature adult intimacy. Because guess where we learned that from? Our families of origin, for good or for ill. If we had a love-based family who really had it together about boundaries and the 3 Ps and all that, yay for us. But most of us, to greater or less degrees, didn't. So we have to create that healthy situation for ourselves and model that for our children so they can go on and have that in their lives.
I always say couples work is legacy work. The work we're doing impacts everyone around us. When we learn healthier communication and relationship skills, it's a ripple effect.
Beautifully said.
I love that you brought that up with the kid. Like, yes, they see it, then they have better, healthier relationship. Knock on wood. That's the hope, right? Dr. Cochran, this has been wonderful. And I know that this will be one replayed many times to help couples navigate some of these conversations. If people want to connect with you and learn more from you, where can they find you?
Oh, I'm on Instagram. I have a podcast called The Relationship Doctor, and you can find me at drcochran.com.
Excellent. I will make sure the links, all those things are down in the show notes. Thank you for your wisdom. I love learning from those in the psychology field as I am and hearing how you talk about things. It was just eye-opening to some of my own, like, oh yeah, that is a good point. Yes. So I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I enjoyed our conversation very much.
And dear listener, we'll see you next time. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. The effort you put into your relationship is one of the most important investments you'll ever make. How you communicate and grow together shapes your home, your leadership, and the example you set for the people around you. Relationship work is truly legacy work, and it quietly impacts more lives than we often realize. If this episode resonated, consider sharing it with someone you care about, a partner, a friend, or another couple who's building a full life and want their relationship to be the best part of it too. And if you're enjoying these conversations, make sure to follow or subscribe to Relationship Reset. Leaving a rating or review also helps this message reach more couples who are ready to grow with intention. I'll see you next week.